Welcome to Podkey Daily News, your fast brief on the forces reshaping life, markets, and power. Canada is hardening its break with Washington AI faces tests in court and on battlefields, and pressure on Iran is rippling into oil markets. Here are the developments carrying the biggest practical consequences. Dolly Parton has died of cancer at 80, closing a 6-decade career that made her one of America's most durable cultural figures. From a 2-room Tennessee cabin and a family of 12, Parton wrote roughly 3,000 songs, released more than 50 studio albums, and sold over 100 million records. Jolene, 9 to 5 and I Will Always Love You carried her far beyond country music. Her influence also became an institution. Dollywood draws more than 2 million visitors a year. Her business empire was valued above $500 million, and her imagination library reached families around the world. Her giving also included Tennessee Wildfire Relief, a local birthing unit, and funding connected to Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine. Tributes are arriving across generations, parties, Hollywood, and country music. Parton's rare achievement was a public image that held through commercial success, philanthropy, and deep credibility, with audiences who felt she remained connected to where she came from. Canada is imposing dollar-for-dollar retaliation on U.S. goods, with tariffs reaching 50% on about $20 billion in imports. Steel, aluminum, motorcycles, chainsaws, processed cheese, seafood, dairy, and agricultural equipment are among the affected products. The measures, scheduled for September 8th, follow President Trump's threat of larger tariffs on Canadian cars. They arrive after roughly 18 months of U.S. tariffs on Canadian metals, lumber, and automobiles, with Canada already close to recession. Ottawa has chosen targets with political reach into Republican states and Senate races, including Maine seafood and Kentucky bourbon. It is avoiding energy export restrictions, limiting the risk of a wider North American backlash. Prime Minister Mark Carney is treating this as a strategic turning point. He rejected a proposed deal even after concessions involving U.S. liquor and cheese, because tariff relief remained uncertain and Canada's auto sector could still be exposed. Carney is expanding ties with Europe, Asia, Brazil, Mercosur, and other markets while defending Canada's trade rules, Buy Canadian policies, and French-language streaming requirements as sovereignty issues. Watch whether public support holds as the economic costs build. An Angus Reid poll found 76% backing a walkaway approach. Washington has launched what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent calls Economic D-Day, sanctioning 60 entities and individuals linked to Iran's oil sales, shipping, finance, weapons procurement, gold, crypto, aviation, and technology networks. The campaign uses secondary sanctions to pressure countries and companies dealing with Tehran, and it explicitly aims to squeeze revenue while encouraging regime change. China, historically Iran's largest oil buyer, calls the measures illegal and is threatening countermeasures. That raises the stakes for energy markets. Traders warn oil could return to $100 a barrel as inventories decline. China returns to the market, and the U.S.-Iran war approaches 1 month with talks over reopening the Strait of Hormuz stalled. The immediate question is whether sanctions reach Chinese financial institutions or Iran's remaining trade routes through Gulf states, Turkey, Russia, and Asia. Any further disruption around Hormuz would quickly feed into global fuel and shipping costs. Meta's Instagram youth harm trial is putting CEO Adam Mosseri under federal questioning over claims from 29 states that addictive design features kept children and teenagers engaged. The case centers on infinite scroll, recurring notifications, and internal research restrictions after the Facebook file's disclosures. Reported internal messages suggested employees sought to keep sensitive findings away from Mosseri to reduce legal exposure. The states want product changes and could seek penalties estimated between $400 billion and $1.4 trillion if they win the initial phase. The trial will test how far platforms can be held responsible for engagement systems designed around young users. A separate AI warning is emerging from Ukraine. A New York Times investigation found a Russian drone that appeared to lack an antenna or active human operator, using onboard machine learning to classify a target and decide whether to strike. The UN and Red Cross say autonomous weapons are approaching a moral threshold. Cheap systems could be deployed at scale, while AI identification failures could turn a mistaken classification into a fatal attack. Watch for renewed demands for international limits on machines selecting human targets. The AI investment boom is spreading risk far beyond Silicon Valley. Technology companies are expected to spend $7 trillion on data centers by 2030, financed through bonds, private credit, insurers, pension funds, and retail investment products. Investors are questioning whether facilities built in 2026 will retain their value as chips and AI architectures evolve. Local opposition, fire and flood exposure, and expensive power infrastructure add to the risk of stranded projects and higher utility bills for communities. Meanwhile, Flock Safety has deployed roughly 120,000 cameras across nearly every state, collecting around 20 billion license plates a month along with vehicle details such as bumper stickers, dents, racks, and models. Privacy advocates and officials across the political spectrum are pushing for limits on retention and interstate data sharing. Researchers also found access weaknesses in some cameras, which Flock says have been patched. The broader issue is how searchable vehicle tracking is governed when millions of ordinary drivers are captured. Pennsylvania has reported the first U.S. measles deaths this year. 2 unvaccinated people, more than 25 years after the country declared the disease eliminated. Thousands have become sick as vaccination rates fall, showing how quickly population-level protection can erode. The Supreme Court has also given the Trump administration a temporary procedural win on its mail voting order, while another nationwide ruling still blocks full Postal Service implementation. The court has not ruled on the order's legality. The policy would require voter lists to be sent to USPS and direct ballot delivery only to people on those lists. Colorado and 22 other states are suing as ballots are prepared, warning that errors in a compressed timeline could disrupt voting already underway. The administration is also considering revoking visas for up to 200,000 people who entered on business or tourist visas and later sought asylum. That would rank among the largest mass visa revocations in U.S. history. That's the standing brief from Podkey Daily News. Stay alert to the policy decisions moving from headlines into daily life. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.